What is up, my friends? Happy Monday, December 1st. Happy December. I can't believe, let's take a moment. Where did this year go? Where did 2025 go? I cannot believe that we are already at the end of the year. Like, even just saying that, it just like really hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my gosh, Christmas is right around the corner, and then the New Year's gonna be here, and oh my goodness. I am, as many of you guys know, I typically have been helping with the 31 Day Wisdom Challenge, which is in January. We're almost done with the funnel. I will share that. You could go sign up and register once that's live, but it essentially is reading the book of Proverbs every day in January. And then Pedro has some guest speakers on to share their wisdom and what they've kind of gleaned from the book of Proverbs. It's a really cool challenge. And December and November is typically when we prep for that. So I've just been working on the funnel, and it has a whole new look, whole new design. So I've been like busy behind the scenes doing that. And so now we're gonna do this, and then I have one other funnel build that I have to do tonight. So Q4 always tends to be a little crazy, but I am taking care of myself. I'm doing more self-care as we are learning inside of this book. And while I feel like there's some other areas that I could definitely be practicing more intentionally with my creativity, I do feel less insane. So over the last few like weeks with some of the chapters, many of you guys have even emailed me saying that you're feeling a little all over the place. It's become harder and harder to do the morning pages, which I feel you. I am still not doing my morning pages every day. I also kind of wake up and then I just feel like, oh, this is the last thing I want to do. I don't want to have to like brain dump these pages, but chronically still every time I do them, I do feel a lot better actually getting them done. So let's go ahead and dive in. For those of you guys who are in the US, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Also, for any of you who love shopping on Black Friday, hope you had a good time on Black Friday. You scored some things that you really wanted. My sleep schedule is back to being off, and my husband and I went to Lowe's because they had a really good Black Friday deal. Or not deal, they had like a Black Friday giveaway thing. And I actually sent out an email about it. And so if you guys are on my newsletter list, then you should have seen the email. I talked about the power of branding and the difference between these two big brand names and how one did it really well and one completely failed. And so if you haven't seen that email, it's called How Target Literally Fumbled the Bag or something like that. How Target Fumbled the Bag, literally, something like that. I'm pretty proud of that email, and it had a pretty good open rate too. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this chapter. So I'm gonna go ahead and prep my screen now. Alrighty, let's see if it wants to work. Oh no, hold on a second. Um, 1 minute. Gotta love tech issues. We're 8 weeks into this, and you think I would have it nailed down still. Okay, I think now we are ready to rock. Let's do this. All right, so week 8 is recovering a sense of strength. And I am missing. Hey, there I am. Okay. Um, all right, recovering a sense of strength. This week tackles another major creative block, time. You will explore the ways in which you have used your perception of time to preclude taking creative risks. You will identify immediate and practical changes you can make in your current life. You will excavate the early conditioning that may have encouraged you to settle for far less than you desire creatively. Okay, so she starts off talking about survival and how artists go through this common theme. I mean, pretty much our whole lives of loss and gain and the beauty and pain in that. So she says all artists must learn the art of surviving loss of that's supposed to say hope. You know, one of these days I'll fix I'll never spell check on my stuff. Loss of hope, loss of like face, loss of money, loss of self-belief. And in order to move through loss and beyond it, we must acknowledge it and share it. And this is something that I have been in the art of practicing over the years. I feel like this is probably one of the stronger areas in my life, and oftentimes when people message me, they'll be like, I love how like open and honest you are online. And it wasn't always that way, just a heads up. Like long time ago, I used to post all the I was like on Facebook before all my friends were on Facebook, because it used to be just a college thing before it was like opened up to everybody. And I used to share all this sorts of stuff on Facebook, and I would create blog posts and write these longer things and share a lot about my faith. And when I was going through breakups and hard times, I would always put these like really sappy things on there. Anyway, I just like kind of wore my heart on my sleeve. And one of my close friends was like, I think you're being a little too emotional on Facebook. And ever since then, I started pulling back and I stopped posting as much, and it just kind of really hit me hard. And this part kind of leads into this next thing, but I over time, I with reading the help with the help of the artist way, over time I started to like post more and share more, started to realize that there's breakthrough in that for other people, and how important it was to actually go through this process, to acknowledge it and then to share it, in hopes that it would encourage other people with where they're at and where they are going to be. And so I've been there, and it sucks, but it is so beautiful when you do get to share from a place of vulnerability. I find vulnerability as courage. I love Brene Brown. If any of you guys are not familiar with Brene Brown, I highly recommend that you look her up and read her books and her content. She talks a lot about vulnerability and shame and a lot of internal beliefs and a lot of internal things that we're wrestling with. She's very well known for that. Now she's kind of stepped into like the leadership space a bit. But anyways, this is a really beautiful process that all of us creatives are going to be going through time and time and time again. And so we must remember that our artist is a child, and that what we can handle intellectually far outstrips what we can handle emotionally. So she talks about how the most damaging form of artistic loss is criticism, which often happens when we are younger, from authority figures and figures that we create these sacred bonds with when we are younger. So typically it's parents, but it could also be teachers, it could be mentors, it could be editors. And um we often feel fools for continuing to try, even though like we were told this stuff when we were young. And she mentions how like the most damaging form of artistic loss has to do with criticism. The artist within, like the child within, is seldom hurt by truth. I will say again that much true criticism actually liberates the artist it is aimed at. We are childlike, not childish. Um, the artist thinks, yes, I can see that, that's right, and I can change that. The criticism that damages an artist is the criticism, well intentioned or ill, that contains no saving kernel of truth, yet has a certain damning plausibility or a blanket of judgment that cannot be rationally refuted. And so part of the exercises that you do in the tasks and then that we've done in the past is really going back to figure out, okay, like who, when we were growing up, may have said something that was very critical, that now looking back, we're like, oh, actually, that statement wasn't true. That was their perspective, their opinion, their thought, but it isn't necessarily true. And like, how many of us have carried that shame and that guilt and that fear of wanting to continue to create and wanting to continue to pursue things? So I know for me, like growing up, thankfully, like my parents have always been really encouraging. Many of the art classes that I was in were very encouraging. Even in college, when I was doing like the art programs, my professors gave me valuable criticism. It could be it wasn't necessarily like, how do I say this? It was criticism, but like done in a way that was supportive and encouraging me to like improve. It wasn't like I walked away. It wasn't like, you suck, you have no talent, you're never gonna be anyone, you can't do any of this. It wasn't like any of that. It was more so, like, hey, this is how I am viewing this, and here's how I think you can actually improve it. This is what I would do. And I found that sort of criticism very like helpful and very supportive. So then the next chapter she goes over is the ivory power, and this is more about like professional academia and collegiate stuff, which ironically I'm just talking about like my art classes in college. So sometimes academia can be a challenge to the creative spirit because it lacks encouragement and cannot be comfortably quantified in intellectual terms. And for an artist to become overly cerebral is to become crippled. In order to recover our sense of hope and courage to create, we must acknowledge and mourn the scars that are blocking us. And many times, as artists, our injuries are self inflicted, sabotaged by our fear, low self worth, or other agenda. They will haunt us, but by doing all artistic U turns, we can begin the process of healing. So as I was reading this chapter, I was thinking about my days in college and what it was like, and that example that I just gave you where I actually had really good support. But I will say, I don't know. I part of me is kind of like, I feel like I was a lot more creative in college, probably because like I didn't necessarily have to worry as much about bills. I'm very grateful that my parents had paid for me to go to university. And so like I had a job regardless to make money to pay for a lot of other things that I wanted to do and travel and food and help with the dorm and books and things like that. But like my parents covered a chunk of it. And so I feel like back then I was way more into the art and practicing a creative lifestyle than I am today. And I'm grateful for that experience. I know it's not the case for a lot of different people though. And I have had a few friends that are actually professors in art schools, and they even have read this book and been like, "Man, I need to find ways to actually be more encouraging with the criticism, and actually encouraging students to remain creative and not just do creativity for like the sake of getting things done." So I will say that was something that I always struggle with doing art classes in college was having this additional pressure of things having to be perfect and things having to be really well done and having to be very technical and having to be a certain way to be able to get a certain grade to be able to pass, all in attempts to go apply to a graphic design program, which if you guys haven't heard my story with that, I went to University of Central Florida. I was trying to apply into the graphic design program, which required me doing 2 years of art classes. I did the 2 years of art classes, applied for the program, and they said that I wasn't good enough and I want to be able to do it. And that really did throw me back, and it really did hurt. And I was like, man, like this sucks. I wasted so much time doing all these things. But something that we learn about in this chapter, I think it's in the next slide, is the art of actually like reframing and reshifting and actually seeing that loss as a gain instead. So before I leave this part, she does talk about in this section about her friend Ted. I think it's in the section. It is. Okay. She talks about her friend Ted, who had finished writing his first novel and he sent it out to a literary agent. He had paid about $100 for it. And then the feedback that came back was negative. And because of that reaction, he didn't want to do anything with it ever again. He was so discouraged about it. And that was until she encouraged him to get back into it. She encouraged him to revisit it, and now he's written 3 novels and 2 movies, and he's an impressive literary agent with a growing reputation. So he had to really feel where the pain was and then rebuild it. He was able to use that pain as strength, which we are kind of beginning to see in this whole process here. So age and time, product and process. I am constantly asking myself these questions because of this chapter. So, oh, wait, I totally realized I totally missed a whole section. Sorry, guys. All right, gain disguised as loss. Art is the act of structuring time, which is ironically something that so many creatives tend to be really bad with. It's something that I have been trying to figure out myself, and it's been really hard. I will say, it's gotten harder in the last year. And I was on a podcast recently and talking to somebody about this, how I believe that speed is killing creativity right now, and especially with the introduction of AI. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons to it. But I even have people that I'm doing work with that they expect things to be done within hours instead of days, when typically for most people it might take weeks to do a project. And so the timelines have been like cut short, and it's making it a lot harder to kind of like gauge time, restructure time. I'm still trying to figure out this whole thing. But outside of time, she talks about how every loss must be always viewed as a potential gain. It's all in the framing and reframing things as every end is a beginning. And this is something, as many of you guys know, I've been going through this process over the last few months as I have left a team that I've been on for a really long time, and companies that I have been behind the scenes working, and it was really, really hard for that to end when I wasn't expecting it to end, and it wasn't necessarily on my terms. And so, I had to be like, okay, like this is an end to this, but it's going to be a beginning to something hopefully better and bigger and new and fresh. And I have been in the process of seeing what this looks like and reframing all the things that I've learned in the process, and really stepping into a new identity at the same time. And so it really has been, in that moment, it was such a great loss. I was in tears. I was a wreck. I was really depressed about it for a bit. And then I started to, as we're going through the artist way and I've been processing in the morning pages, I'm like, man, what a gift this has been. And being able to kind of have more freedom with my schedule and freedom with my days, and being able to like work on stuff has been such a gift. So what she encourages you to ask is, how can this loss serve me, and where does it point my work, and what is next necessary next? Artists who take this to heart survive and often prevail. And the key here is action. Pain that is not used profitably quickly solidifies into a leaden heart, which makes any action difficult. When faced with loss, immediately take one small action to support your artist. And I've seen this happen not only in my life like over and over, but I've actually seen it in several of my peers as well, where something doesn't work out the way that they hoped. It's a very painful loss that they're dealing with, and then they just kind of sit on it and sit on it and sit on it and sit on it, and they don't move forward with it. And then it's like a year later and they're still kind of sitting on what happened and they haven't moved forward. And I'm checking in like, hey, like, what are you doing? What's going on? What are you doing to move forward? And it could be really like easy for us to kind of get trapped in that comfortability. Really what it is, it's just being a blocked creative. And so she encourages to start asking the question when you recognize this and you're aware of it and you're sharing what's going on, right? Start asking yourself the how instead of, well, why me? And because I think oftentimes we go into this like victim complex of like, well, why did this happen to me? I don't understand why this could happen to me. And instead be like, okay, well, how can I move forward with this? And how can this actually serve me? What is the benefit of this? And then figure out one small thing that you could do to go to the next step. And speaking of AI, like if you are having a tough time with processing this, you could probably ask ChatGPT to help you create like small action steps that you could put in your calendar and do day by day. All right, so the next section is age and time. And this is, I hear this all the time, as I'm a millennial. I just turned 38 years old. And I've worked with all sorts of ages. I've taught kids, teenagers. Most of my clients, I would say, are probably in like the 50 to 60-year-old range. And oftentimes, also when I'm doing training, I hear, well, I'm too old for that. And I quickly have been like, no, you're not. You're not too old for that. It's never too late to do this sort of stuff. And so, us using that language of I'm too old for that, or I'm too broke for that, I'm never going to be good enough for that, like these are all just like being part of a block creative, and it's preventing us from exploring things even further. And the reason why is because it saves us the emotional cost of ego deflation involved in being a beginner. That should say being, not begin. And it's always used to avoid fear, and I've recognized this in myself with many things where I'm like, well, I don't think I would be good at that because of this, and I'm like making all these sort of excuses. But at the end of the day, it is fear. My school community was a big thing with this for years. People were asking me to start a community and to start coaching, to start mentoring, and I was like, well, I feel like I'm not good enough, and I personally am not making seven figures, so why would I like, teach other people this stuff and this person said this about me and so now I believe this and and what I realized was like I was believing so many lies, but also there was a lot of deep rooted fear there, and I'm still recognizing this as I am in the process of like reshifting my offers and repositioning myself and how I stand out in the marketing space and what I'm speaking on, all that jazz. I feel like this is just like a process that you go through over time as you get older. So it's never too late. Creativity occurs in the moment, and in the moment, we are timeless and we can step into the flow. Those are the best times when you can actually just kind of like sit and enjoy something creative. And it's like no time has passed. You're just having fun with it. And I'll be honest, it's been a while since I have really stepped into that flow. I can't wait to get back into that flow, but I'm trying to do little things in my day to help me get back into that where it's like, oh yeah, this is like so fun for me to do. Every so often I'll get into that flow with funnel designing where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to bed in 2 hours. Then it's like 6 hours later, 4 a.m. And I'm like, oh man, I totally stayed up all night, but I have this beautiful funnel. This is so fun. It is fun when you get to like kind of step into that. So in a sense, no creative act is ever finished. We kind of talked about this in the previous chapters, where we're talking about perfectionism and how perfectionism can stop us from doing so many things. But realistically, to us artists, nothing is ever done or ever finished. So, focused on process, our creative life retains a sense of adventure. Focused on product, the same creative life can feel foolish or barren, which can result in creative blockage. So, we always want to focus on the journey. We always want to focus on the adventure. We always want to focus on the process, and not the end item thing. So, the grace to be a beginner is always the best prayer for an artist. I really love that just kind of like idea and statement of being. It's such a beautiful thing. And then she talks about filling the form, which this I thought that this was interesting. So it's about taking the next small step instead of skipping ahead to a large one for which you may not be prepared for yet. And some of you guys might kind of notice this maybe even with your morning pages where like you have this like idea and it's like, oh man, I want to do this really big thing, but it's gonna take years to do and it's gonna do this, this, and that. And it's like just start with like your morning pages and start with getting the ideas out in the morning pages and like start small. Sometimes like we want to go so big so fast that we forget the little things. Block creatives like to think that they're looking at changing their whole life in one fell swoop. They think so far ahead that it could set defeat in motion. I've seen this happen many, many, many times where people are so stuck on the end thing, instead of like starting from somewhere even it's really small. Creatives are traumatic and often use it to scare ourselves out of our creativity with this notion of wholesale and often destructive change. And creativity requires activity. Filling the form means working with what we have. And I really love this and just like recognizing like, okay, what's in our hands? What can we do now? And so, oftentimes, many of us as creatives, we tend to be very naturally creative, right? But some of us might try to live in this like fantasy that just isn't reality. And so we like to think of our lives of like, oh man, well, what could our life look like? Like living as a full-time photographer, full-time writer, full-time movie director, full-time video editor, full-time graphic designer, full-time whatever it may be. Sometimes we get so trapped in like, well, what would life look like then, instead of being like, I'm here in the moment now and what is the small action I could do now to help me get to where I want to be. Okay, so that is pretty much the chapter. She did have an exercise in the back. I didn't put it in the slides, but I'm like scrolling through here. She has a exercise called early patternings, and she has like these like questions. There's about 20 questions, And similar to the other exercises that we've done in the past, you just want to kind of go through quickly and write whatever comes out in your head first, whether it's negative or positive. You could go back through and kind of see what is, being said in these statements. And then you can kind of dig deeper and figure out like, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? And is this true, or is this a lie? And have I been holding on to this shame? And have I been holding on to this guilt? And like, what can I do with this? Like, use it as a tool for action for the next step. And then the other thing, after the early patterns exercise, is affirmations, which many of you guys should already be doing in your morning pages. I know I have been doing them in my morning pages every single day. And if you are kind of stuck on ideas of what to do for affirmations, she has some in this chapter. But another thing you could do also is, if you're using ChatGPT, you could probably ask ChatGPT to help you come up with some different affirmation ideas. But I find that these are also super helpful to start my morning with. So even though I'm not writing every single day, I do wake up, I do go outside to get some fresh air. I like to ground, which is essentially being barefoot on the earth, kind of get, nature's frequency and whatnot. And I like to pray out there, and I like to just kind of like communicate with God and just go through these different, like, this is who you say I am, sort of statements and affirmations. And it's super helpful to do. Then we have our tasks, which we're not going to go through over here on the live. This is something that we could do behind the scenes inside of Higher Calling for any of you who want to do that inside of Higher Calling Creative Club. But that is it for this week. That is chapter 8 on recovering a sense of strength. And next week, we're going to be doing recovering a sense of compassion. There are only 3 more chapters. We're going to end the year strong. Please let me know how you're doing. Reply back to the email or reply to this video if you want. All these videos are going to be taken down once this 12-week challenge ends, and then I will kickstart this. I'm probably going to do maybe an automated version of this. I'm still trying to figure out those details. But we'll do another version of this probably, if I had to guess, in March. That's what I'm thinking, is March is going to be the next one. I know the holidays are really tough for people. But that is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you later.